8 of us cornered the human girl after hours, to break her the way the academy had always broken its new cadets. And 20 minutes later, when everything went wrong, when the wing we were standing in became a death trap, and the academy's automated system sealed off the wrong section and left us with no way out and no help coming, it was the human girl, the one we had come to break, who was the only reason any of the 8 of us walked out alive. I have spent the years since trying to understand how the people who cornered her became the people she saved, and I have never fully managed it, except to say that I did not understand humans at all until the night I tried to break one, and she chose, instead, to rescue me. I am Cadet Doran, and I was one of the 8 who cornered the human girl, and I am not proud of it, and I am going to tell you the whole truth, the cornering, and the disaster and the wrong wing, and what the human girl did that none of us deserved. I have told this story carefully over the years, because it is easy to tell it in a way that makes me look better than I was, and I have decided that telling it that way would be its own kind of cowardice. So I am going to tell it honestly. We were the villains of this story, the 8 of us. The girl we came to hurt was the hero. That is the truth of it, and the truth is the only way the story means anything. Let me tell you about the night 8 senior cadets cornered her after hours, and the academy locked down the wrong wing, and a girl we had come to break turned out to be the only one of us with the courage and the heart to save us all. You have to understand the academy first, and the thing we were about to do, because I will not hide behind euphemisms. It was cruel. We were cruel. And the cruelty had a tradition behind it that made it feel to us almost normal, which is the most dangerous kind of cruelty there is, the kind that has been done so many times that the people doing it have stopped seeing it as a choice. The academy was a military school, one of the great training institutions of the coalition, where cadets of many species were forged into the officers who would command the coalition's fleets and forces. It was old and prestigious, and hard, proud of its hardness, the way such places are, believing that the harshness was what made its graduates strong. The buildings were vast and gray and severe, full of long corridors and training halls, and the constant disciplined motion of cadets being shaped into soldiers. It was the kind of place that took the children of military families and forged them into the next generation of the coalition's leadership, and it had been doing it for a very long time, and it had accumulated over that long time its traditions, and some of those traditions were noble, and some of them were ugly, and the ugliest was the one we called the cornering. The cornering was a hazing. I will not dress it up. It was an old, brutal tradition where the senior cadets would select a promising new cadet, always a promising one, that was part of it. You only cornered the ones who seemed like they might be better than you, and corner them after hours, away from the staff, in some remote part of the academy, and break them down. Frighten them. Surround them, trap them, loom over them, and methodically dismantle their composure, push them past their limit, make them feel small and helpless and afraid. The official justification, the one we all repeated, was that it tested the new cadet, that it revealed whether they had the toughness to be an officer, that better to break them now in a hazing than later in a real crisis. That was the story. It was a lie, or at least it was mostly a lie. The truth, underneath the noble-sounding justification, was simpler and uglier. The cornering happened because it had been done to us, and we had survived it, and now it was our turn. And inflicting it made us feel powerful and senior and superior in a way that nothing else did. That is how cruelty perpetuates itself in an institution. Not through monsters. None of us thought of ourselves as monsters. Through ordinary young people who had endured a cruelty and been told it was tradition, been told it was a test, been told it made them stronger, and who therefore, when their turn came, inflicted it on the next generation without ever quite letting themselves see it for what it was. Each cohort of cadets enduring the cornering and then, having endured it, becoming the ones who did the cornering, passing the cruelty down like an inheritance, each generation telling itself the same comfortable lies that the generation before had told. I had endured the cornering 2 years earlier. I had been terrified and humiliated, and I had survived it, and I had told myself it made me stronger. And now it was my turn to inflict it, and I told myself the same things, and I did not look too closely at what I was actually about to do. And that year, the new cadet everyone was talking about was the human girl. Her name was Reyna, and she was the first human ever admitted to the academy. Humanity was new to the coalition, new to the galaxy's institutions, and Reyna had come to the academy as a kind of experiment, the first of her species to be tested in this ancient and demanding place. And she was good. That was the thing that made her a target. She was not just keeping up, she was excelling. Top of her class within weeks, sharp and capable and quietly excellent in a way that made the established cadets, the ones from old military families who had grown up expecting to be the best, deeply uncomfortable. A human nobody, from a species the galaxy still thought of as primitives, had come into the most prestigious military academy in the coalition and started outscoring cadets whose families had been producing officers for generations. And that could not stand, not in the social logic of the academy. So the talk started among the senior cadets the way it always did. The human girl needed to be put in her place. She was getting above herself. Scores were not everything. There was a hierarchy here, an order, and the human newcomer needed to learn that she was new and human and beneath the established cadets, and that no amount of test scores changed that. She needed the cornering. She needed to be reminded, the way new cadets had always been reminded, exactly where she stood. And 8 of us, the senior cadets who ran the cornering that year, myself among them, decided that we would be the ones to remind her. I want to be honest about my own part because it is the part I am most ashamed of. I did not object. I could have. Some small voice in me, even then, knew that what we were planning was wrong, that there was something especially ugly about 8 of us ganging up on one new girl, something that the noble justifications did not quite cover. But I did not listen to that voice. I went along, because going along was easier than standing out, because objecting would have made me a target myself, because the others were doing it, and I did not have the courage to be the one who said no. That is the truth of how I came to be one of the 8. Not because I was a monster, because I was a coward, in exactly the way that lets ordinary people do cruel things, too afraid of my own cohort to refuse to join their cruelty. We planned it carefully, after hours when the staff were gone and the academy was quiet. In a remote wing, an old, rarely used section of the academy, away from everything, where no one would hear and no one would interrupt. We would lure her there with a falsified message, the usual method, and then the 8 of us would corner her and break her and put the human nobody in her place. That was the plan. 8 senior cadets against one new human girl, in a remote wing after hours with no one to interrupt. We got the part about no one interrupting very, very wrong. We cornered her in the remote wing, exactly as planned. Reyna had been lured there by a falsified message. A note about a study session for a difficult course, the kind of thing a diligent new cadet would not refuse. And she arrived in the remote wing expecting books and classmates and found, instead, 8 senior cadets, spread out, blocking the exits, already beginning the slow encircling that was the opening move of the cornering. And here is the first thing that did not go as planned, the first crack in our cruelty, the first sign that we had badly misjudged the girl we had come to break. Reyna was not afraid. I need you to understand how much the cornering depended on fear, because it is the whole reason it began to fall apart. The cornering ran on fear the way a fire runs on fuel. The entire mechanism of it, the after-hours isolation, the remote location, the blocked exits, the 8 against 1, was engineered to produce terror, to make the new cadet feel trapped and outnumbered and helpless, and then to feed on that terror, to watch it bloom and use it to break them. The fear was not a side effect. The fear was the point. And without it, the cornering was nothing, just 8 cadets standing awkwardly in a room with one unafraid girl. And Reyna, cornered by 8 senior cadets in a remote wing after hours, did not give us the fear. She looked around at the blocked exits, at the 8 of us closing in, at the whole apparatus of the cornering that we had assembled so carefully, and I watched her understand exactly what was happening, watched her take in the trap and the numbers and the intent in a single sweeping assessment, the way a sharp mind takes in a tactical situation. And then, having understood it completely, she simply did not panic. She did not beg. She did not show us the dawning terror that was supposed to be the whole point. She just stood there, in the center of our trap, calm and watchful and alert, taking the measure of us the way we had thought we were taking the measure of her, and waited to see what we would do. It unnerved us more than I can describe. A cornering depends on the victim playing their part, and Reyna would not play it. The 8 of us had walked in as predators, certain and superior, in total command of the situation, and within a minute of her arriving, the calm of one unafraid girl had begun to curdle our certainty. We exchanged glances. We hesitated. The cruelty we had come to inflict meant something it had no purchase on, a steady, watchful, unintimidated calm, and slid off, and left us standing there feeling, for the first time, like the ones who did not understand the situation. We had come to make her feel small and trapped and afraid. And somehow, impossibly, in the quiet of that remote wing, it was the 8 of us who were beginning to feel uncertain, and her, alone and surrounded, who seemed entirely in command of herself. I have wondered since what would have happened if the night had simply continued like that, whether Reyna's calm alone would have defeated the cornering, whether 8 cadets meeting one unbreakable girl would have eventually run out of cruelty and slunk away ashamed. I will never know, because I did not have time to find out. None of us did, because that was the moment everything went wrong. I do not fully understand, even now, what failed. I have pieced together what I can over the years, but the truth is that the disaster came out of the part of the academy we understood least, the old, neglected infrastructure of a remote wing that almost no one used and almost no one maintained. There was a sound first, a deep, wrong sound, not the sound of anything that should be making a sound, a groan of failing machinery somewhere in the bones of the building, the kind of sound that makes every living thing in earshot go instantly still, because some old instinct recognizes it as the sound of something breaking that should not break. And then there was an alarm, sudden, harsh, automatic, and then the remote wing began to do something it was never supposed to do. I will not describe the technical details of the failure, partly because I genuinely do not know them and partly because they do not matter to the story, and I will not pretend to an expertise I do not have. Some environmental system, some containment or atmospheric or structural system in the aging, poorly maintained wing, failed, catastrophically, cascadingly, the way old neglected systems fail, one failure triggering the next. What matters is not the mechanism but the effect. In a matter of moments, the remote wing where 8 cadets had cornered one human girl stopped being merely remote and became genuinely, mortally dangerous. The environment turned hostile. Conditions began to deteriorate fast in ways that threatened the lives of everyone in that wing. The place we had chosen precisely because it was isolated and unwatched and far from help became, in the space of a minute, a trap with all of us inside it, and not the kind of trap we had built, but a real one, indifferent to who was predator and who was prey. And the Academy's automated emergency systems responded exactly as they were designed to. That is what they were for. Detect a hazard, contain it by sealing off the affected area, dispatch help. The systems detected the hazard. They initiated lockdown. They sealed off a wing and dispatched the Academy's emergency response to handle it. The wrong wing. I have thought about the wrong wing more than almost anything else in my life, because it is the hinge on which everything turned, the failure inside the failure that left us alone with our fate. I do not know precisely why it happened. Maybe a sensor fault in the old, badly maintained section. Maybe a flaw in how the aging wing was mapped in the Academy's systems, so that the hazard registered as being somewhere it was not. Maybe simple confusion in infrastructure that had been neglected for so long that the automated systems no longer accurately knew its own layout. Whatever the cause, the Academy's emergency lockdown sealed off the wrong section, locked down an adjacent wing, contained a hazard that was not there, sent the Academy's entire emergency response rushing to a place where nothing at all was wrong, and left us, the 8 cadets and the human girl, in the actual failing wing, the real one with the real hazard, sealed in by the deteriorating conditions and the automatic containment, with the Academy's help racing in exactly the wrong direction and no one anywhere knowing where we actually were. We were trapped, truly trapped this time, not the staged trap of the cornering, but a real one. 8 senior cadets who had come to break a new human girl, and the new human girl herself, sealed together in a failing wing, with the environment turning lethal around us, and no help coming because the Academy had locked down the wrong wing and did not even know we were in danger. The cavalry was on its way. It was just on its way to the wrong place. And it would arrive there and find nothing wrong, and waste precious time figuring out its mistake, while we ran out of the time we did not know we had. And the 8 of us, the cruel, confident, superior senior cadets who had walked into that wing 20 minutes earlier in total command of everything, panicked. I am ashamed of how completely we panicked, but I will tell you the truth of it, because the contrast between how the 8 of us behaved and how Reyna behaved is the entire heart of this story. And the contrast does not work unless I am honest about how badly we failed. We fell apart, utterly. The 8 of us who had walked into that wing as predators, certain, cruel, superior, in total command of the situation, 8 strong senior cadets against 1 frightened newcomer, fell completely to pieces the moment the situation became genuinely, mortally dangerous. It turned out that our courage, the courage we were so proud of, the courage that the cornering was supposed to prove and instill, had been entirely fake. The cheap, hollow courage of people who are only brave when bravery costs nothing. We had been so brave when we were 8 against 1 unarmed newcomer. And the moment real danger arrived, the moment we were the ones trapped and threatened and afraid, that brave facade evaporated like it had never existed, and revealed what had been underneath it all along. Frightened young people with no idea what to do. Some of us froze, simply locked up, unable to move or think. Some of us ran for the sealed exits and beat on them with our fists, uselessly, screaming for help that was rushing to the wrong wing and could not hear us. Some of us turned on each other, shouting, blaming, the cohort that had been so unified in cruelty, fracturing instantly into panic and recrimination, the moment the cruelty was no use anymore. We were senior cadets, the Academy's best, the next generation of the coalition's officers, supposedly being forged into leaders who would stay calm and command others in moments of crisis. And in the first real crisis any of us had ever faced, we shattered, every single one of the 8 of us, into useless, frightened chaos, our vaunted toughness revealed as exactly the empty performance it had always been, no use at all now that we needed the real thing. And in the middle of our panic, standing calm in the failing wing while 8 senior cadets fell apart around her, there was Reyna. The human girl, the one we had cornered, the one we had lured there to break. She was the only one of us who did not break. While 8 senior cadets dissolved into panic, the new human girl we had trapped in that wing looked at the failing systems and the sealed exits and the deteriorating conditions, and she did not panic, did not freeze, did not run uselessly at the doors, did not turn on anyone. She got still, that same steady, watchful stillness she had shown when we cornered her, but turned now fully toward the crisis, and she began immediately to think, to assess, to look with that sharp, capable mind that had made her top of her class and made us hate her, for a way out. The girl we had come to break was the only person in that wing who did not break when it actually, mortally mattered. And what she chose to do next, trapped with 8 cadets who had just tried to hurt her, in a failing wing with no help coming, owing us less than nothing, with every reason in the universe to think only of saving herself, and let the 8 who cornered her face the consequences of the trap they had built. What Reyna chose to do next is the reason all 8 of us are alive, and the reason I have never, in all the years since, been the same person I was when I walked into that wing. The first thing Reyna did in the middle of our panic was take command, not by shouting, not by force. She just started giving us something to do, and we, desperate, terrified, leaderless, followed her, because she was the only one in that failing wing who sounded like she knew what came next. Stop, that was the first word. She said it loud and flat and certain, cutting through the panic, and somehow it landed the way a clear voice lands when everyone else is drowning. Stop, all of you. Beating on the doors won't help, that wing's sealed and the help's going to the wrong place, so nobody's hearing you. Screaming won't help, panicking is going to get us killed. So everybody stop and look at me and breathe. We are getting out of here, but you have to do exactly what I say, starting now. And we stopped. 8 senior cadets who had come to break her, who outnumbered her 8-1, who 2 minutes ago had been her tormentors. We stopped, and we looked at her, and we did what she said. Because in a real crisis, leadership is not about rank or numbers or who cornered whom. It is about who stays calm and who knows what to do, and in that wing, the only person who was calm and the only person who knew what to do was the human girl we had come to break. So she became our commander in an instant, by the only authority that means anything when the building is failing around you, the authority of being the one who is not panicking. I have to tell you what it was like to be led by Reyna in that crisis, because it taught me, in 20 minutes, everything I had been at the academy 4 years to learn and never understood. She was calm, but it was not the absence of fear. I could see up close that she was afraid. Her hands were not quite steady. Her breathing was controlled the way you control your breathing when you are making yourself stay calm. That was the thing that struck me most later, thinking about it. Reyna was not fearless. She was afraid, like any sane person would be, trapped in a failing wing with the air going wrong. But she did not let the fear run her. She felt it and acknowledged it and set it aside, and acted anyway, which is not the same as not being afraid, and is, I came to understand, the only kind of courage that actually exists. Fearlessness is just not understanding the danger. Courage is understanding it completely and being afraid and doing what needs to be done anyway. Reyna was the most courageous person I have ever seen, and the proof of it was that she was clearly terrified the entire time. And she was competent in a way that humbled all 8 of us. She read the failing wing like a problem to be solved, assessing the conditions, identifying what was deteriorating fastest, working out how much time we had, where the dangers were, what routes might still be open. She had us check exits methodically, not in a panic but in an organized search, each of us assigned a direction, reporting back. She found, in the way the conditions were worsening, information the rest of us could not even see, read the failure the way she read everything, sharply, quickly, turning blind panic into a solvable situation. The mind that had made her top of her class, the mind we had resented and wanted to punish, turned out to be exactly the mind that could save 8 lives in a failing wing, and she put the whole of it to work on the problem of getting us out. But the competence is not the part that broke me open. The part that broke me open was simpler, and I have never gotten over it. Reyna could have saved herself. I want you to understand that because it is the center of everything. At several points as she worked out our situation, it became clear that the safest thing, the smart, self-interested thing, would have been for her to focus on getting herself out, and to leave the 8 of us to our fate. We had cornered her. We had lured her into that wing to break her. We owed her nothing, and she owed us less than nothing, and the cold arithmetic of survival said that one person moving fast and alone had a far better chance than one person trying to shepherd 8 panicking cadets through a failing wing. Any reasonable calculation of self-interest said, save yourself, Reyna, and let the people who came to hurt you reap what they sowed. She never even considered it. That is the thing I have never been able to get past. It was not that she considered abandoning us and nobly decided against it. It was that the option does not seem to have existed for her at all. The thought of getting herself out and leaving 8 people behind, even 8 people who had just tried to break her, was simply not a thought Reyna was capable of having. She had 8 people in that wing with her, and they were in danger, and she could help. And so she was going to get all of them out or none, and the fact that they were her tormentors did not enter into the calculation, because to Reyna there was no calculation. There were just people in danger and she could help, and that settled it. I asked her about it later, why she didn't just save herself, why she risked everything to get the 8 of us out when we'd come to hurt her. And she looked at me like the question didn't quite make sense, and she said, "You were in trouble. I could help. What else was I going to do, leave you?" Like it was the most obvious thing in the world. Like the idea of leaving people to die was so foreign that she could barely understand me asking why she hadn't. What else was I going to do? As if there had never been another option. As if her own life being easier to save was simply not a reason to save it alone. She got us out. I will not pretend it was easy or quick, or that it did not nearly fail more than once. It was the most frightening 20 minutes of my life, moving through that failing wing under Reyna's direction, the conditions getting worse, the time running out, 8 terrified cadets following one human girl through a deteriorating maze toward an exit she had reasoned her way to. But she got us out, all 8 of us, every single one. She did it by refusing to let any of us fall apart. When one of us froze and several of us froze more than once, the fear overwhelming us, Reyna was there, talking us through it, the same way I would later learn humans always seem to do it. "Look at me. You're okay. I need you to move now, just to that door, just that far, I've got you, come on." When one of us got separated, or panicked, or could not go on, she did not leave them. She went back every time, refused to lose anyone, dragged and coaxed and willed all 8 of us forward together. She put herself between us and the worst of the danger more than once, took the most dangerous positions herself, sent us through the safer routes first and came last, the way I now understand a real officer does, not in front demanding to be followed, but behind, making sure no one is left. And at the end, when we reached the exit she had found, a way out of the failing wing that the rest of us would never have found in 100 years of panicking, she did the thing that I think about most. She counted us. Made every one of us go through first, counted us out, 1 through 8, made absolutely certain that all 8 of the cadets who had cornered her were safely out before she came through herself, last. The commander leaving the failing ship only when every one of her crew, even the crew that had come to mutiny against her, was safe. 8 she counted, and then she came through herself, and only when she was sure all 8 of us were out did she let herself stop and lean against the wall, and shake, finally, with the fear she had held back the entire time so that she could save the people who had come to break her. I have to tell you what was happening inside the 8 of us through all of this, because the rescue was not the only thing happening. There was a second, quieter thing happening inside each of us that mattered just as much. We were being unmade. The people we had been when we walked into that wing, the cruel, confident, superior senior cadets, certain of our place above the human nobody, those people were being dismantled, second by second, by the simple, unbearable fact of being saved by the girl we had come to hurt. Because you cannot hold on to your contempt for someone while they are risking their life to save yours. You cannot keep believing you are superior to someone who is, at that very moment, demonstrating a courage and a competence and a goodness that you do not have and have never had. Every second Reyna spent saving us was a second that destroyed the story we had told ourselves about her, and about us. The story where we were strong and she was weak, where we were above her and she was beneath us. That story could not survive the failing wing. It died in there for all 8 of us, and what replaced it was something much harder to live with. The knowledge that the human girl we had come to break was better than all 8 of us combined, and that we owed her our lives. I felt it happening to me, in real time, as she led me through the failing wing, felt my contempt for her curdle into shame, felt my sense of superiority collapse into the unbearable awareness that I was being saved by someone I had come to hurt, felt the whole structure of who I had thought I was come apart in the face of who she actually was. It is a terrible thing to be saved by someone you have wronged. It is also, I have come to believe, one of the few things that can actually change a person, because there is no escaping it, no way to spin it, no way to hold on to your old self in the face of it. The girl we cornered saved our lives. There is no version of that story where we come out looking like anything but what we were. And being forced to see what we were, by the undeniable fact of her goodness, was the beginning of all 8 of us becoming something better. The Academy's emergency response found us, eventually, found the 8 of us and Reyna outside the failing wing, safe, after the systems finally realized they had locked down the wrong section and redirected to the right one. By the time they reached us, there was nothing left for them to do but stare, because the people they had come to rescue had already been rescued by one of their own, and the official emergency had been resolved before the officials ever arrived. We were sitting on the floor of the corridor outside the sealed wing, all 9 of us, shaken and alive, and at the center of us was the human girl who had gotten us out, finally letting herself rest. And then came the reckonings, the official one and the personal one, and as always the personal one was the one that mattered. The official reckoning was complicated, because the truth of what had happened was complicated, and ugly, and reflected badly on a great many people who would have preferred it stay hidden. Because the investigation could not avoid the question of why 9 cadets had been in a remote, after-hours wing of the Academy in the first place. And the answer to that question was the cornering, the cruel hazing tradition that had lured Reyna to that wing so that 8 senior cadets could break her. The disaster had dragged the cornering into the light. There was no hiding it now. The only reason any of us had been in that failing wing was that we had gone there to commit a cruelty, and the near disaster had made that cruelty impossible to keep secret. The Academy was forced, finally, to confront the thing it had allowed to fester in its remote wings for generations. The ugly tradition it had always known about and always ignored, dressed up as a test, perpetuated by cohort after cohort, until the night it nearly killed the cadets practicing it. And the 8 of us did not hide what we had done. That was the first real act of the people we were becoming. We could have lied, could have claimed some innocent reason for being in that wing, could have protected ourselves and let the cornering stay hidden. We did not. We told the truth, all 8 of us, about why we had been there, about what we had come to do to Reyna, about the cornering and our part in it. Partly because Reyna had saved our lives and lying about why she'd had to would have been a betrayal we could not stomach. And partly because the people who came out of that failing wing were not the same people who had walked into it, and the new people could not bring themselves to hide behind the lie the old people would have told without a second thought. We confessed. We took the consequences. And the cornering, exposed at last, was finally ended. Not by reform from above, but by the disaster that revealed it, and by 8 cadets who could no longer pretend it was anything but what it was. The personal reckoning was harder, and it belonged to each of us, and I can only really tell you about mine, though I know the others carried their own. I went to Reyna a few days after to apologize. I did not know how. There is no script for apologizing to someone you cornered who then saved your life. The apology and the gratitude tangle together into something there are no words for. But I went, because I had to, because I could not live with myself if I did not at least try. I told her I was sorry, for the cornering, for being one of the 8, for all of it. I told her I had known it was wrong even then, and had done it anyway out of cowardice, and that the cowardice was the worst part. And then I told her the thing that was hardest to say, the thing that had been eating at me since the failing wing, that I did not understand why she had saved me, that I had come to hurt her, and she had risked her life to save mine, and I could not comprehend it, and it had broken something in me that I did not know how to put back together. And Reyna listened, and when I was done, she did not give me the absolution I was half hoping for and the punishment I half deserved. She just looked at me, steady and clear, and she said, "I saved you because you needed saving. That's all. It's not complicated, Doran, even though I know it feels like it should be. You were a person in danger and I could help, and so I did. What you done to me didn't change that you were a person in danger. It didn't change that I could help, so it didn't change what I did." She paused. "I'm not going to tell you the cornering was okay. It wasn't. You were cruel and you were a coward and you should carry that. But carrying it isn't about me forgiving you or not forgiving you. It's about what you do now. You got a second chance in there, we all did. The question isn't whether I forgive you. The question is what kind of person you're going to be with the life I helped you keep. And then, more gently, I'd suggest a better one than the kind who corners people, but that part's up to you. What kind of person you're going to be with the life I helped you keep. I have organized the rest of my life around that question. It is the only question that ever mattered. The 8 of us changed. Not all in the same way, not all at the same speed, but all of us, really. You cannot be saved by someone you wronged and stay the same. The experience demands a response, and for all 8 of us the response, eventually, was to become better, to spend the lives Reyna had given back to us trying to deserve them. We became, the 8 of us, the cadets who had been undone in the failing wing and remade by the girl we cornered, something we had never been before. People who understood what strength actually was, because we had seen it up close, in the one person among us who had it when it counted. And the academy changed too, a little, in the way institutions change, slowly, incompletely, but really. The end of the cornering was part of it, but the deeper part was Reyna's example, which spread through the academy the way the true story spread. The human girl who was cornered by 8 and saved all 8, who turned out to be the truest officer the academy had produced in a generation, not despite being the one they tried to break, but in the very act of being broken and refusing to break. The academy had spent generations cornering its best cadets to make them hard, believing that cruelty forged strength. And Reyna had shown the whole institution in one night that it had the entire thing backwards, that the cornering did not forge strength, it just forged cruelty, and that real strength looked like the exact opposite of cruelty. Like the girl who, trapped with 8 tormentors in a failing wing, thought only of getting all of them out. I have to tell you what became of Reyna, because it is the most satisfying part and the most instructive. She became exactly the officer the academy had always claimed it wanted to produce, and had spent generations failing to produce because it was looking for the wrong thing. The academy thought it forged officers by making cadets hard, by cornering them, breaking them, teaching them that the world was cruel and they had to be cruel to survive it. And it had been producing, generation after generation, exactly the kind of officer that method produces. Hard, yes, but hollow, brave when bravery cost nothing. The kind of officer who would corner a newcomer with 7 friends and then fall apart the moment real danger came. The kind of officer the 8 of us had been on our way to becoming. And Reyna was the other kind. The kind the academy's whole brutal method could never produce, because you cannot make someone like Reyna by breaking them. You can only make them by the thing the academy had forgotten, which was example and care, and the slow, patient teaching of what it means to be responsible for other people. Reyna had not become brave and good because someone cornered her. She had become brave and good because somewhere on her human world, she had been raised, taught, by people who loved her, that you do not leave anyone behind. That strength is for protecting others, that the measure of a person is what they do when someone needs them. And she brought that to the academy, and the academy, which had been trying to manufacture officers by cruelty for generations, got to see, finally, what an actual officer looked like. And it looked like a girl counting 8 tormentors out a door before she let herself shake. She rose, of course she rose. The academy that had tried to break her ended up holding her up as the example of everything it claimed to value, and the 8 of us who had cornered her ended up, in our own smaller ways, trying to be a little more like her for the rest of our lives. The girl we came to break became the standard we all spent our careers failing to live up to. There is a justice in that more perfect than any revenge. I am old now, long retired, and I have told the story of the night we cornered Reyna more times than I can count, always the same way, always honestly, because the honesty is the only thing that makes it worth telling. I tell it. 8 senior cadets cornered a human girl after hours to break her, and then the academy locked down the wrong wing, and everything we thought we knew about strength turned out to be exactly wrong. We had come to that wing certain we were strong and she was weak. 8 against 1. The established cadets against the human nobody, the strong putting the weak in her place. And the failing wing tested the thing we thought we knew, the way nothing else ever had, and the answer it gave was merciless. When courage actually cost something, when the danger was real and the stakes were our lives, the 8 of us who thought we were strong broke instantly, and the one girl we thought was weak was the only one strong enough to save us all. Because we had never understood what strength was. We thought it was the capacity to dominate, to corner the weak, to make others afraid, to be the predator instead of the prey. And it was never that. That was just cruelty, which is the cheapest thing there is, and which collapses the instant it meets a real test, because it was never strength at all, only the performance of strength by people too weak to have the real thing. Real strength was the thing Reyna showed us in the failing wing. The calm that does not break when everything is breaking, the courage that is afraid and acts anyway, and most of all the refusal, the absolute, non-negotiable, almost incomprehensible refusal, to leave anyone behind, even the people who came to hurt you. 8 senior cadets cornered her after hours, and the academy locked down the wrong wing, and the girl we had come to break got all 8 of us out and counted us through the door, and only let herself shake once every one of us was safe. That is the strongest thing I have ever seen. It looked nothing like what I had been taught strength looked like. It looked like a girl we had wronged, refusing to leave us behind. What else was I going to do, leave you? She really did not understand the question. That was the most humbling part. To Reyna, leaving us was not a temptation she nobly resisted. It was simply not a thing a person does. And I have spent my whole life since trying to become the kind of person to whom it would also, someday, be unthinkable. The kind of person who, when others are in danger and they can help, does not calculate, does not weigh the debts, does not remember who wronged them, but simply turns toward the people who need them and thinks, the way she did, the only thought that ever actually mattered. What else was I going to do? We came to break her. She refused to break. And then when we broke instead, she put us back together and carried us out, and never once asked whether we deserved it. Because to her, we didn't have to. We just had to need it. And we did.